In the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for being who I am, for having this in our life in order to, come up again and to talk about the stories of the Prophet. So in this time, we are going to learn, we are going to come across the one of the greatest stories of the story of the Quran, so that we are going to come up with the story of Abraham, peace be upon him. So in this time, we are going to cover up by the story of the Abraham, and this is it's a wonderful story that which you come across the from the Quran, and that's what we are going to relate it to know and to take benefits from this story. So my brothers and sisters in Islam, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us another opportunity in order to come up with such stories, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all our good deeds, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us peace and paradise. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant the prophets, all the prophets until the last prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant him the mercy and give them the peace and the protection, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them Jannatul Firdaus. Ameen. And today we are going to come up with the story of the Prophet, the story of the Prophet Abraham. And this story we are going to come across this in this time. It will not be ended, but we have that we will cover a little bit from his life, from the one who is the tyrant at that time, which is called Nimrod. Firstly, we are going to know the life, a little bit story about the life of Nimrod, and then we will go through the life of the Prophet Abraham, may peace be upon him, which is honorable one at a time. So firstly, we are going to go through the story of the tyrant Nimrod, who was disbeliever at the time of the Prophet Ibrahim. And we are saying the Ibrahim in Arabic, which is called Abraham in English. So we are going to come up with the story of the tyrant one, which is Nimrod. So this it is Nimrod. Let us go just further in some details of the life of Nimrod. Nimrod is related to the Babylon, where Abraham was born. Also was ruled by a tyrant which is called Nimrod. Nimrod was one of the 4 kings who dominated the whole world of that time, and he was these are the two disbelievers. He was disbeliever at that time. Those were which is the two, and some of them they were believers, which is like Solomon, which is Sulaiman and Dhul Qarnain, while Nimrod was the other of the disbelievers. He is a tyrant. Nimrod was intoxicated with power. He was unjust and oppressed his people. He was born to Canaan, at the time, which is was known as a tyrant, which is known for the strength, violence, and craziness about hunting. It was said that his loud crowd, this is something that has been said, that it was said that his loud cry frightened even the lions and the wild beasts. While Nimrod was born, his father Canaan ordered his wife, to the mother of the child Nimrod, to kill the child or to cast him into the desert and leave him there to die or to be devoured by killed or to be just beaten by wild animals. He is a child which is bring ill. He thought that the child bring ill luck to him, so that he wants to kill him. And even he wants to see that, or since he had been told by soothsayers, or by the storytellers, or by, we can say, magicians, we can say that his son will bring him ill-fated for him and ill luck for him, so that he wants to kill this boy, and he wants to take it away from him. He would be, the instrument of the destruction, so that when he was born. So by this, he declared that this child should be, carried out to the far place and to die there. And the boy's mother did what her husband told, and she took the baby away to put in the midst of the crowds gazing at the desert. When she came back the next morning, she found the child there. The Narmut was there, and alone, alive, and he was unharmed. The cows which is fled and left, the place. The same was done by the wild animals. Whenever the child was beast, so the baby is felt in away. So the Canon's wife took the baby and threw it into the river, which is waited, and she waited till the baby is sinking into the water. She thought that the baby was drowned and died, and would be, the great relief to her husband, and this is the end of their worries. However, a little while later, the child emerged from the water and washed ashore to the bank of the river, and by the waves. The tingers which is come from the which comes to the river and to drink. While these tingers, drinking, so the baby was sleeping on the sun. So it was, the baby. So it took the baby to a shade of a tree and shelter for a heat of the sun, from the heat of the sun, and sucked it. And then, when the people of the nearby villages heard about these stingers taking care of a baby, they went to the bank to see if the child was alive. So the child from, the Tingers village, which is reared, and gave the name Nimrod. And when Nimrod grew up, and he became a highway robber and a serious means of his child's kingdom. When the news was dangerously, which is highways, robbers, and many of the people he had gathered around his crushes Canaan, Nimrod's father, which is Canaan, led an army against his son, and the fierce battles which is took between father and son. Neither father nor the son, they knew about the fighting or about the battle which has taken place. They don't know each other, and they don't know that they are fighting with each other. So Nimrod was won the war, or he was won the battle, and he killed his father. He killed the Canaan of the king, who is the king at that time, and he became a king in the place of his father, which he was a king before. And this is a little bit touchable, things that which is Nimrod's life. And right now we are going to go into further detail to the birth of the prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. In the year of the childbirth of Abraham, Nimrod was told with the same people that which has been told before to his father, that this child is going to be a means of destruction for him. So these people have told that another boy who is going to come and will be the destruction of you as Nimrod. And so who would bring a downfall to you, and his destruction will be the destruction of your regime. They told like this, and thus Nimrod has to take all the necessary precautions and protect himself and his regime. Nimrod separated husbands from their wives and kept their courtiers within their compounds, or the people. The courtiers means his people, those whom working for him. So his compound for the place was his place, and he prevented them from going anywhere, and put them sentinels, which is mean bodyguards, as we say, at the door of each house. So he gave orders to his soldiers and searched for his houses of the Babylon frequently, confirming that pregnant women and slay any news which has been taken or born, male or baby, or any male that which has been born. Azar, the father of Abraham, which his name is Azar, at the time Others wives conceived that child which Namrud was told about it, and the soothsayers, they said that the soothsayers, by the soothsayers, which is the child which is gonna come and which will be a means of destruction for you. This is the child which has been born by others wife at the time. So she became pregnant, but her pregnancy never showed. Nobody noticed that she has been pregnant, because nobody noticed that Azar's wife has become pregnant. Why? Because Nimrud's soldiers, because they didn't expect, or they didn't suppose, and they didn't suspect that never searched Azar's house, because they knew that Azar was confined in the palace all the time and prevented from going out like to the other courts. What is mean here? Because they didn't search Azar's house, because they knew that Azar was Nimrod all the time, so that they didn't expect that his wife will become pregnant or will born a baby that which is going to be a means of destruction for Nimrod. So when Azar's wife went into a labor, she sneaked. That means she just hide herself out of the city, and the childbirth, which is the pain of the childbirth, drove her to a cave in the desert, which is reached and noticed by Nimrod's soldiers. In the cave, she gave birth to a most beautiful child and healthy male baby. She cleaned the baby, and she suckled it, and then she closed the mouth of the cave, and she with a rock, she took a rock and she closed the mouth of the cave, or the gate of the cave, and she went back. She went back to the homely, steadily. And again, none of the Nimrod soldiers noticed her. The next day and every day after, she tried to steal out. That means she tries to escape from the place to go to the child place, which is you going to take care of the child. So she didn't find any chance. Her all attempts failed it. So a week later, she could still unnoticed. A week later, she had found the chance to go to the cave, and we found the baby. The baby was safe and in good health. She saw it suckling honey from the water, from honey and water from her fingers, from its fingers, sorry, from its fingers, and the milk from its thumb. This is the child. She found the child was suckling, honey and water from from its fingers, and the baby is drinking milk from his thumb. So she felt, at ease. Her feeling was good at the time. She was happy. So she closed the cave, carefully, and returned home so happily, because of the child safe, and the child was taking care of himself. So Abraham stayed which in the cave. He stayed in the cave. The child stayed in the cave. He was taught to avoid the painful, which is the painful, or the dangers in which he and ancestors and contemporaries had, which is fallen. Abraham stayed in the cave till the age of 12. At the age of 12, he succeeded in doing what he has been trying to, remove the rock which has been put in the gate for a long time. So he succeeded in removing the rock from the mouth of the cave. And what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills, and at the time Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills Ibrahim to come out of the cave and open to an open space, to the open world. So where he was, encompassed by the darkness of the night, Abraham's spiritual enlightenment began then. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, we showed Abraham the kingdom and the laws of the heavens and earth, that he might become a firm believer. So Abraham at that time, he sees the useless of the worshipping distance, beautiful things which are shining, the beautiful things that which are shining with their ancestors, those which they are believing in these creatures which has been created by themselves. So the power, he saw the power which he does not write in them. Types of these are darkness are the stars and the moon, and he saw total darkness of the night, total darkness at the night, and the stars and the moon, and he saw the total dark of the night which is shining in brilliance. So he said, that's surely my Lord. But when it faded in the morning light, he said, I will not worship gods that fade. When he beheld the rising moon, a bigger and brighter body, he said, certainly that is my Lord. But when he was saw this, it changed in its shape, and from hour to hour, and at the last, it set like the star. And he said, this is definitely not Allah. Then the next stage in Abraham's spiritual enlightenment was when he found himself in the open light of the day. He saw there appeared to him to the biggest object of the heaven. He saw the sun rising all in its glory and splendor, and was on a point of deciding for it, but it was totally eclipsed. He said, this is not my Lord. Then he told, then what about the Mother Earth? It was brings forth fruits and prevents and preserved life. But he observed that it needed rain from the heaven. His reasoning about the stars and the moon and the sun and other things begins, mounted up. So he led him from the nature of things to the nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My Lord cannot be limited by time or space. He is the cause of the movement of changes, shapes, and heavenly bodies and other things. He is the creator of everything. He is the nourisher, cherisher, sustainer, provider, protector. He is the one and only the one. All other things are his creatures and in no way comparable to him. He said, I return my face firmly and truly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has created the heavens and the earth, and we shall never give partners to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Thus Ibrahim, pounded about the immoral wonders of nature, of whatever he saw in his wandering. He did not stop to did not stop short at the wonders and of the nature, which is prevented them from the nature. So he could judge of the unknown. Undoubtedly, his people will dispute with him, frightening him with his dire consequences of his descent. What does he care? Because he has found the true worship of his, those whose will nothing can happen. So he started shouting at the top of his voices, none has the right to be worshipped except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, without association with him, till he found himself at his home with his parents. When his parents saw him entering the house, they recognized him. He was, or his father was dazzled by his son's beauty, rushed to him and embraced him, warmly, so warmly. So Abraham sat beside his mother and asked her mother, who is your Lord? She replied, my father. And then He said, "Who is your father's Lord?" She replied, "Namrud." Then he asked the third question, which he did not receive an answer. Who is Namrud's Lord? Ibrahim questioned doubtfully and dumbfounded his parents. So he started to restrain. That means to again. He just asking the question frequently. The phrases which is God, no God except Allah, who is my Lord and the Lord of everything. His parents, forbade him from saying that phrase again, so that he, but he would not refrain. He would not be prevented from saying it, so that his mother carried him because of the fear of her son from Nimrod. So Abraham put a salting arm around his mother's shoulders, and he said, "Mother, don't worry about me, but you have nothing to fear from Nimrod. I am in custody of my Lord, who created me, fed me, gave me a drink, cured me, carried me, protected me, taught me, since you have given me birth in the cave." So Azar, Abraham's father, who feared that someone may slander him to Nimrod, so he hurried to tell Nimrod about his son before anyone else. When he came into Nimrod's, Azar said, "My lord, the majesty, the king, you remember the boy that which his soothsayers told you about it 12 years ago turned to be my son. Now, he was born away from my side, or away from my house, and I did not know about his birth till this day when he came out of the cave of the blue. Certainly your majesty would not blame me for something which I did not know." So Nimrod said to Ibrahim, "Let me see the lad first." And he gave orders to his soldiers to fetch for the lad, and immediately the soldiers went to Azar's house and took the child from her mother and brought to Nimrod. When Nimrod saw the child and ordered his soldiers to keep him custody till the next morning. Early in the morning of the next day, Nimrod convened his council and lined up the soldiers. Then Abraham was brought in. Abraham looked left and right and at the man, and he said, "What do you worship?" Nimrod roared and answered and said, "I am their Lord, and I am your Lord, and I created you and provided you sustenance. Accept my religion and the religion of your father and people." Abraham told Nimrod that he was a liar, and he said, "My Lord is the one who true God, whom I worship. He created me and all the worlds. He guided me, take care of me, gives me food and drink when I am ill. He cures me. When I die, he will give me new life. He will forgive me and give me final salvation." So Nimrod, courtiers, and soldiers, were stunned by Abraham's speech, which is Abraham's beauty and his speech and the charm he was, and were amazed at the eloquent and impassioned speech which has been said by Abraham, and had a magical affection on them. Nimrod could clearly see that his men were captivated by Abraham's beauty and charm and in his speech, which is appealing to them. So he was, he and his courtiers and soldiers, this is mere child. He said, this is a mere child who does not understand what he says. It does not behove me. So I'm king of the kings, the most powerful king of the greatest kingdom of the world, and hasten the punishment of the Lord. Then turned to Abraham's father and he said, Azar, take your son home and teach him about me and about my religion. Tell him about how strong am I and how powerful am I. At home, Azar took his son and to the room where he kept his merchandise and all the idols. He showed him idols made of wood, stones, marbles, goldens, golds, all kinds of the things that which has been made which has been made their idols. So when Abraham when Abraham saw an area of the images which he asked about his father, gently he said, "Oh father, what are these images of?" "These are our gods," Azar replied. "Do you worship them?" He said, "Yes, yes, of course we do. But these neither do harm nor they profit from you." Abraham, which is said like this. And he said, "Who said so? Take this precious one and sell it in the market, and you will see how much money you will gain from this. So I'm sure that you will get a lot of money from it. Then you know how profitable our gods are." Abraham, tied the iron's leg and with a rope and dragged it behind and carried along into the streets of the city and shouted, "Who buys precious idols which neither harms nor profited?" So, however, no one can dare to, stop him from the high stream which they held for his father. So Abraham then, pious, dutiful son, which is his father in all things, materials and spirituals. He wanted to be guided and friend to his father, who had not received the light of unity. When he returned home, he said to his father in a gentle, persuasive tone, he says, "Oh my father, why do you worship worthless idols, neither harms nor sees, neither hears nor sees?" So his father, in a passion arrogance, replied in rude tone, "How dare you to renounce my gods, Abraham?" Then he glared at the sons threateningly and burst out rageously, "Stop this folly. If you don't will, I will stone you to death, and I will disown your favor." What a speech! What a saying! How dare this father say such things to his to his child? When he said like this, Abraham stayed with his father, for whom sometimes, threatened him, and at other times which he treated him, nicely, so in hope that Abraham would accept Nermud's religion. This is, Abraham's birth. By this way, how he was raised. So in the next time, we will go to the fighting against the idolatry, and we shall stop here, and then till we come to the next time, in order to speak, tell further about this story, that which is Abraham story. And the next, tomorrow it will be about the fighting against the ideal. So we shall stop here, and sallallahu alaihi wasallam.